knows it right away. Every fan who's watching that game, I got a bunch of tweets from people immediately when he overthrew Ham, of people saying, oh no, this is bad, this is going to be a problem. And I don't know what the solution to that is. Of course the offensive line did not block very well. Of course the running game was not the same with Dalvin Cook. And even the check down game has been huge for Kirk Cousins. Yes. He averages 8 yards a pass attempt when throwing behind the line of scrimmage this year. And that's really a testament to how dominant Dalvin Cook has been. And with the safety blankets not there, without good protection, with the Packers taking away bootlegs and rollouts that get him outside the pocket, he was forced to just be a playmaker, and that's not something Kirk Cousins is. I think if you're talking about someone like Deshaun Watson playing or Patrick Mahomes playing in that same game, those guys can run. Those guys can, find ways to dodge tacklers and make plays, and that's just not what Kirk Cousins is. So they really better hope that when it comes to the playoffs, they don't match up with a team that can get after it in the middle as well as the Green Bay Packers can.
We're here with Matthew Coller, the host of Score North. All right, so you are a believer in this narrative that Cousins just plays completely different in prime time. Like, you're one of those guys that think that as soon as the bright lights kind of get under him, especially, we're really just talking about prime time because of the Monday night record, because of the prime time record. You are in the belief that it is an actual thing. It's not just some stat that people want to hammer away. Because if you look at his touchdown to interception ratio on prime time, it's pretty good, right?
Well, yeah, that's classic Kirk Cousins to have good traditional stats no matter what. He always has as a starter. But, I think when you have a sample size this big, you start to question it. Even the games that we gave him credit for on national TV, and we talked about how he played okay against the Seattle Seahawks. Well, you still had the ball at the end of the game and ended up losing. He played really well on national TV against the Los Angeles Rams last year. Had the ball at the end of the game, ended up losing. It is a trend that has a sample size that is starting to grow to the point where you have to acknowledge it. 0-9 on Monday Night Football is really incredible. The fact that you have to win your next 9 games to even be 500 kind of says something. And what it looks like to me is that he just gets over anxious when he knows that there's a lot on the line and that everybody is looking at him and resting on him to try and win a game. And the other night, a lot of things were handed to him that would have been to his advantage. You get the ball right away at the 10-yard line is how you start the game, and you can't come away with a touchdown. And then 2 other times you get the ball, one of them in your territory off of turnovers, and you come away with a grand total of 10 points. And there's just an anxiety that goes along with, I think, even watching him. So fans who watch him in these big games, you can feel it, the anxiousness in the pocket and how rarely he's throwing off of a good platform. You see him throwing off his back foot a lot and not getting right to his depths and also just being kind of nervous to make a play, to take off and run and things like that. So it's not impossible from the games that I've seen for him to play well on Sunday Night Football or Thursday Night Football or Monday Night Football. But I think it speaks to also how he just plays against teams that are good. Because usually if you're on that stage, you're playing against teams that are good. Of course he put up 400 yards on Washington. They're terrible. And there was no nerves for that. Playing against the Packers, that's a division game against a great team. There are nerves for that. And that's what you worry about in the playoffs, is that, that he would come out and feel the same sort of pressure to prove everyone wrong and have that anxiousness about him and have one of those same performances almost no matter who it's against.
And early on, you could totally see it with Kirk if he's really riled up. Like you saw it against the Chicago, right? He can't get his feet set. He's overthrown. Like the adrenaline just seems so high with him. He can't control it. And all Viking fans totally see it. And you sort of saw it on Monday night. It's like Green Bay gives you a golden opportunity, and the great teams at home score 7 on both. 3 turnovers, and you're only up by 1 at halftime. That's pretty telling. That's when you know you're kind of where you stand in terms of probability of winning this game, because Green Bay, they weathered the storm. The defense played well enough. One more thing on the offense. Adam Thielen, Matt, really scaring me right now. He drops a ball that he makes 9 out of 10 times. Now, the regular wide receiver doesn't make that catch, and you know what I'm talking about. It was like a fly route, and Adam had to dive for it, but he still makes that catch. 3 catches and 27 yards last 2 games. Are you worried about this guy's health?
I would say that I would be concerned about one particular area of the offense pertaining to Thielen, would be feeling like now that he hasn't had any catches here, and he's probably not going to play Week 17, or if he does play Week 17, it won't be much, that just integrating him back into the offense has been kind of difficult. And as weird as it sounds, I mean, they were really excellent at working the ball around to a lot of different places when Thielen wasn't there. So it was Stephon Diggs is the deep guy, but Irv Smith underneath, Kyle Rudolph in the red zone, B.C. Johnson only when you have to, but B.C.'s going to make the catch, and then Dalvin Cook out of the backfield. And with Thielen back, I'm not sure if they've tried to game plan a lot of throws his way, and then they haven't gotten to them, or he hasn't been open, or Cousins has been hesitant to throw it there. But it's been much less of an effort where they distribute the ball all over the place. And that was always the concern with Thielen coming back when you were so excellent without him. Like, okay, now you're adding him back, and you seem like, he'll just come back in, and he'll just, go for 100 yards, and they'll be 100 yards better than they were before. But that's not really how real football works. That's how my Sega Dreamcast 2K2 game works. And so that would be the case, part of the case to play the starters in Week 17. They're not going to, but that would be your maybe lone argument would be, hey, why don't we see if we can get this offense, feeling a little more confident about where Adam Thielen stands in it. And then there's just the fact that you can't miss that much time and come back and expect to have the same burst that you have. Every player I've ever seen that misses time, Everson Griffin last year, same sort of thing, missed 5 or 6 weeks, came back, just did not have that same explosiveness. I mean, these guys do so much to stay at an unbelievably high level that if you're injured and you're out for that long with an injury that pertains to your legs, it's just extremely, extremely hard. So, they're going to need the good version of Adam Thielen in the playoffs, but they're also going to have to understand that if they throw to him 2 times in a game like they would if it was B.C. Johnson, that can be a good thing if they're distributing the ball over the field.
We're here with Matthew Coller, the host of Purple Daily on Score North. Now, that was my next question for you. Do you play the starters? Because I really went back and forth with this. Kendricks is hurt right now. He's having his best season of his career. Dalvin Cook, you want him at 100%. You saw the offense looked without him. And just the fact with Chicago's defense, it just doesn't seem like a fair recipe for success on Sunday. I get the whole let's put out the offense, let's get him get some reps off that horrible, horrible performance on Monday night. But what are you looking at? If you're Mike Zimmer on Sunday, are you playing your starters?
Well, I think that he won't play his starters. I would be very surprised if he does, because then you can treat it like having an extra bye week, and that's nice for you to play Sean Mannion and Mike Boone and all those guys who aren't going to be difference makers in the playoffs, that everybody else can just have a week off and start preparing for whoever they're going to play. The only thing I would say, though, is the argument for playing your starters would be it was so bad against Green Bay that you want to resolve some of those problems, and the Bears are actually a good team to do it against because they play a similar defense. It's the base is the 3-4, and they use a lot of different fronts, and they have an edge rusher, Khalil Mack, who's very similar to Zadarius Smith and how dominant he is. And, that might give you an opportunity, just even if it was 1 or 2 drives, to feel like, okay, we moved the ball against that offense. That's what we need to do. We're back, and we can do that. Because the record against good defenses, the record against good teams, it has been so poor that you would love to see them get a little confidence by putting up some points at home against the Chicago Bears. Now, of course, the other side of that is what if Khalil Mack murders Kirk Cousins? And, that
it could happen.
Yeah, it definitely could happen. And that right there alone would probably be a good enough case to say, all right, yeah, you can't really play him. I think there is an argument for it to stay sharp and stay just rolling along. I mean, the Vikings in Week 17 of 2017 had to play their starters, in that game, and they went on to win the next playoff game against the New Orleans Saints. So it happens all the time that teams play their starters all the way through. And I think the Patriots have done it a lot in the past, where they've continued to play their starters in Week 17, and everybody's been fine for the most part. So. The risk of it is probably overstated. I don't think Kirk Cousins has missed a start since his entire career as a starter, which began in 2015. But, it could backfire for sure. And that possibility is probably enough for Mike Zimmer to say, you know what, let's just get Sean Mannion some work.
Last one here. We're here with Matt Coller, the host of Purple Daily on Score North. Right now, I think the Vikings are locked in to play the Saints as of right now. That obviously can change. Packers lose to Detroit and New Orleans wins this week. I think that can flip-flop. But for right now, they're going to New Orleans. Give me three things. Give me three things. The three things Matt Coller must see to have the Vikings make some sort of a playoff run.
Well, what I must see is Seattle win on Sunday night. Because if Seattle wins on Sunday night, then as long as the Packers take care of the Lions, the Vikings are going to Seattle. And the Vikings can absolutely beat Seattle. I would pick them 100 times out of 100 in that game, with Seattle being beat up. They're missing a bunch of starters. They're missing both of their running backs that ran over the Vikings. You know, their left tackle is having surgery. They're missing defensive players, or the defensive players are playing banged up. And Seattle goes into this game on Sunday night with a plus 12-point differential, which is worse than the Rams. So they're not a good team. I think they're 21st in points allowed on defense. That is a team that the Vikings could absolutely beat in round one of the playoffs and get that Kirk Cousins can't win narrative changed a little bit. And I think that actually, having already played there this year, that Cousins might be a little more confident against them, and of course they can game plan for a defense that they've already seen. If the San Francisco 49ers win, then they're going to New Orleans, and that one's going to be really, really tough for me to pick the Vikings. New Orleans is playing great football at this point. Drew Brees is as good as he's ever played, and so that's one thing, is just who you end up playing. Now, regardless of that, the offense has to perform similarly to how it did in October. They cannot get game planned like Green Bay did. They kept Kirk Cousins in the pocket. If you force him to stay in the pocket and drop straight back without play action or without bootlegs and things like that, he's not going to beat you, more likely than not. And then the other thing is, Dalvin Cook better be healthy, better be really healthy. It's quite clear that this is a different team without Dalvin Cook, and the biggest area for me isn't just the fact that he can bust off a 75-yard run. It's that you can throw a 0-yard pass to him, and he turns it into 20. So if Cousins is anxious, if he's worked up, he's got that anxiety going for a big game, well, what's the best way to get rid of that? Throw a little screen pass to Dalvin Cook and have him run it for 30 yards. And then that gets the offense moving.
You say a lot of times a quarterback's best friend is the tight end. Kirk Cousins' best friend is dumping it off to Dalvin Cook. So, Matthew Coller, great job today. I really appreciate it. Once again, follow him on Twitter. Great follow. Does some great job with the articles. Also, as I mentioned before, the host of Purple Daily on Score North. Matt, if I don't talk to you, have a great New Year, and we'll talk soon.
All right, you as well. Thanks for having me.
So we kind of got into the whole resting the starters thing with the Vikings. I think it's a clear, obvious decision. That's the next thing we'll get into here. Should the Vikings rest their starters? It's not even a question to me. I was saying it even after the Packer game. Before, honestly, the game ended, I looked over to my dad and I said, they shouldn't play Cousins. They shouldn't play Cook. They shouldn't play Kendricks. This is an obvious situation here for Zimmer and the Vikes. And once again, recording this on a Saturday night. They made the decision, obviously, Sunday. I'm assuming they're probably 95 to 99% leaning towards resting the starters, and that's the right decision. Let's have a little checkbox here, right? Everyone, you come into a factory. You're the overseer of making sure that the factory is safe. You got your checklist, right? Let's check the boxes. Eric Kendricks, he's having the best season of his life right now. And he's hurt. You really want to rush him back to play in a Chicago Bears game where it just absolutely means nothing when you're locked into the 6th seed? Check. Benefits the Vikings to get another week of rest for Eric Kendricks. Next one, Dalvin Cook. Did you see how this offense looked without him? Did you see Kirk Cousins look around for checkdowns, couldn't find Dalvin Cook? Did you see teams just pin their ears back and say, we don't got to respect Alex Boone. We're going to go right at Cousins. Did you see how different that offense looked without him? Yeah. Vikings have zero chance if that guy's not in the lineup on Wildcard weekend. Check. Third one, Adam Thielen. Now, Adam Thielen, granted, it was a tough catch, But we Viking fans have become accustomed to Adam Thielen making plays